us in and make us your own. Gather us in, all peoples together, fire of love in our flesh and our bone.
Here in this place, a new light is shining. See in this place our fears and our dreamings. Call to us now, and we shall awaken. Called to be light to the whole human race. Call us anew to be salt for the earth. Lives that are holy and hearts that are true. Not in some heaven, light years away, but here, in this place, the new light is shining. I believe every word of that. Even now, even when so many people are living in fear, researchers in universities are living in fear. Day laborers outside of Home Depot, people posting on their personal social media, people who look Hispanic and speak Spanish, transgender people, politicians and public speakers, people are living in fear in America. We are being divided into friends and enemies, into good and evil, and both sides think the other is destroying our country. So why do I feel so strongly that here in this place, a new light is streaming? Friends, we live in a nation once thought, in the words of Walt Whitman, to be formed from all with room for all. Right here this morning, we're a reflection of that promise. People of all kinds and beliefs together in our humanity, in our fears and in our dreamings. The architects of this nation had a vision. They set us on a mission as a country to be a light or a beacon for the world. The foundation of this light is articulated to be the promise of freedom and justice for all. It's a promise that we have yet to fully achieve. At times like this, it feels like we're going backwards. Yet it is still a compelling vision that motivates the best that's within us. At the time of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Ben Franklin reminded his fellow signers, we must all hang together, or most assuredly, we will all hang separately. In these sentiments, we find a formative principle for our democracy. We need each other, and we are better together. United we stand, divided we fall. In a certain way, our country is more than just a nation. At its best, it's an orientation to hope. One that is rooted in a moral vision for humanity. What holds us all together is more than a common language, more than the same religion, more than ethnicity and a shared cultural heritage. In fact, it's more than our land and its borders. My late colleague Forrest Church and others have referred to what binds us together as citizens of the United States is a creed, by which they do not mean a religious creed, but rather a belief in the rights and dignities of every person for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As Church wrote in his book titled The American Creed, the preamble to the Declaration of Independence distills a mission, and it gives a charge to future generations. Sure enough, over the years, we've become a nation made up of people from every nation. And what holds us together across all these differences is a core hope in the possibility for freedom. Freedom as a governing principle that can uplift not just us, but all of humanity. What makes this freedom about more than just our own self-interest, free to be me, is that it is rooted in the concept that is printed on the dollar bill. I have a picture of a dollar bill because I know a lot of people don't carry dollar bills anymore. The simplest articulation of the American creed is there on the dollar bill and also on a quarter with the eagle on the back. It reads, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. It's a proclamation of the American ideal of pluralism, unity, and diversity. Out of many, one. Now, diversity and differences themselves are just a condition of life. They're just reality. Lots of differences. That's life. But pluralism is something that needs to be created and nurtured. Pluralism is when we have diversity and unity. There are some who feel passionately that our nation ought to be united instead by a conservative Christian creed. Such people decry the notion of a religiously pluralistic nation because they reject the idea that there is more than one way to know God. And it's not just in Tulsa and the Bible Belt. It goes all the way to the highest halls of all three branches of our federal government. One of the moments in the 21st century America when we saw a powerful representation of the American creed, E pluribus unum, was after the tragic events of September 11th, 2001. People in New York and across the country came together to help each other and to honor our shared ideals. We even came together across our religious differences in this country at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., people of all faiths gathered in services throughout the country, even right here in Tulsa. But even then, not everyone appreciated this coming together. You may recall the Missouri Synod Lutheran pastor who was defrocked because he said a prayer in the interfaith service at Shea Stadium in New York just days after the attacks of the World Trade Center. Today we'd say he was canceled. In that time of fear and grief and national tragedy, there were calls to attack and deport and round up Muslim Americans. President George W. Bush, in the days following the attacks, took time out to worship at an American Muslim mosque, to model to our country and to the world that we value religious pluralism and we honor our Muslim neighbors. He saw his role as our nation's leader to protect and to honor all Americans and to bring unity in the midst of violence and fear. 5 months later, in a speech at Tsinghua University in China, President Bush said, "In a free society, diversity is not disorder, debate is not strife, and dissent is not revolution. A free society trusts its citizens to seek greatness in themselves and their country." These are the guiding principles upon which this nation was founded. And President Bush was articulating them. He also acknowledged that the United States has its share of problems, and we have our faults, and we are on a long journey towards achieving our ideals of equality and justice. Nonetheless, he continued, there's a reason our nation shines as a beacon of hope and opportunity. As Reverend Church explains, President Bush, like so many before him, was reciting the American creed. But as we sit here, in the shadow of a very different response from our national leadership, why do I have such a strong feeling that here in this place a new light is shining? Because one thing that makes All Souls different is that we are not only a part of the religious diversity of America, we also try to embody the ideals of e pluribus unum within our congregation as well. That means that we are not a religious community that houses only people who believe the same thing. Instead, we're a community that welcomes people with many beliefs. In that way, we're a microcosm of the nation because we embrace religious and theological pluralism within our walls. Like the Statue of Liberty, we hold up a lamp to welcome people from many different religious backgrounds. And we truly welcome them, not asking anyone to leave their beliefs and their culture behind. That's why we have members who are Jewish and Christian and Buddhist and atheist and much more. We have families who combine different belief systems. And we have people still figuring out what they believe and what they don't believe. All are welcome. All belong. Some are religious refugees fleeing in hospitable territory. Some are seekers looking for a new way and a greater truth. Some are people who have discovered that the best hope of peace in the world and in the human heart will not come from trying to convert the world to all believe and think alike, but will require us to learn how to live and respect each other across our differences. In that way, this church, like this nation, represents a particular kind of hope for humanity. Out of many theologies and philosophies, we have created one community. Why is that important? Why would we want to do such a thing? It's in part because our experience shows us that we are stronger together and we are weaker apart. But like a democratic nation, a democratic church is not always easy. Can we have a little family meeting here this morning? Now, you probably know that All Souls is a religiously liberal congregation. But I hope you know that that's different from being a politically liberal congregation. We don't espouse a particular political position or party. In fact, the last Unitarian president in the United States was Howard Taft. He was also our last Unitarian Supreme Court justice. And he was religiously liberal, but politically quite conservative. In fact, All Souls here in Tulsa has always had a certain base of beloved and consequential members who are politically conservative. And I know that makes us stronger and healthier and better. Now, that being said, it's no secret that our membership leans heavily to the left politically. So I want to have an honest conversation this morning about how people with a progressive worldview might show up differently in this moment. You know, they always ask, like, so you're doing what you always do. How's that working for you? Now, it's easy to see how the other side, whatever the other side is to you, is wrong. And to get angry about it and to live in fear of them, quote unquote, the other, the people who think and vote and believe differently. Science writer Matthew Hudson explains this in an article in Politico. It was a few years ago. It's titled, "Why Liberals Aren't as Tolerant as They Think." In it, he reviewed the research that examined who's more prejudiced, conservatives or liberals, the religious or the non-religious. The findings of the research confirmed that conservatives, liberals, the religious and the non-religious are each prejudiced against those with opposing views. More surprisingly, each group is about equally prejudiced. Now he says liberals might like to think of themselves as more open-minded, yet they are no more tolerant of people unlike them than their conservative counterparts. Now, before you get mad at me or the researchers for that matter, let's look into this idea of tolerance for a moment. In Slate magazine, writer Scott Alexander used a contemporary Buddhist story to make the point. He says, an emperor summons before him the Bodhidharma, the greatest living Buddha. And he asks, Master, I have been tolerant of innumerable gays, lesbians, bisexuals, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, transgender people, and Jews. How many virtue points have I earned for my meritorious behavior? And the Bodhidharma answers, none at all. The emperor, somewhat put out, demands to know why. Well, Bodhidharma asks, well, what do you think of gay people? And the emperor answers, what do you think I am, some kind of homophobic bigot? Of course, I have nothing against gay people or Jews or African Americans or Asians or any of those people I mentioned. And the Bodhidharma answers, thus you gain no merit by tolerating them. You've mistaken tolerance for acceptance. The word tolerance implies that there's something to tolerate. There's something that you don't like or you can't stand about the person. Alexander's definition of true tolerance is respect and kindness to members of an out group. Not respect and kindness towards people you accept already, just because those people are considered by others to be an out group. Tolerance is about respect and kindness towards people who are out of your group, by the way you yourself define it. Now, this may be one of the biggest things that liberals tend to get wrong about tolerance. It doesn't make you or me tolerant because we accept people who others won't accept if we accept them. What makes us tolerant is when we tolerate someone who we do not accept how they think or they believe. For example, especially because I have an African American daughter and I have a Jewish heritage, I have trouble accepting white supremacists and anti-Semitic people. It's personal to me, it's family. But can I tolerate them having the same rights to life, liberty, and happiness as me? That means free speech and freedom to assemble. In other words, can I give them the right to be wrong? This is where tolerance and diversity get difficult. And this is where liberals sometimes fail. One of the most profound requirements of the American creed is, can you offer kindness and dignity to the person who to you has the wrong color hat or the wrong bumper stickers on their car or the wrong view on an issue that you are passionate about and that impacts you? We say tolerance is a low bar, and it is. But if you're like me, I still barely can get there sometimes. Especially when the person that I need to tolerate rejects my personhood because I'm Jewish, or my daughter's full of quality because she's black. But I'm reminded that Jesus didn't only say, love your neighbor. He said, love your enemies. He didn't just say, love the people who love you back. We already do that. That's easy. He said, love the ones who hate you and want to destroy you, your enemies. And that's probably why there aren't too many saints. But what if we could rise to a higher love? Not just the common love of loving those who love us. When George Floyd was murdered, many on the other side of the political aisle from me said horrible things that lacked all or any compassion. I was appalled. I'm still mad. I don't care what they thought of him. Our nation and I and people I love were in shock and grief and rage and fear. Couldn't they have at least shown me, us, a little compassion? And yet, when Charlie Kirk was killed, I immediately started seeing posts online, really harsh things, mean, careless, even cruel. Now, I'm not here to argue whether this is the same thing, the whole George Floyd and this and that. That's not my point this morning. I'm just sharing what I saw and what I felt. Looking back over the past 10 days or so, I realized my conservative neighbors are grieving. And you and I know something about grief. And I wonder, what if I had done something different? Something human? Something that might have actually broken through the intractable division rather than made it worse? What if I had baked some muffins and brought them over? Or picked some flowers from my garden, tied them with a string, and left them with a card? Or even just sent a short text and said, thinking of you, how are you doing? Because the truth is, they were grieving, still probably are. Sad, enraged, scared like us of more political violence. And on top of that, to watch someone that they cared about being mocked after his death, that had to cut deep. I cannot forget how I felt when George Floyd was killed, and how awful it was when people dismissed his life or made light of his death. Their carelessness didn't just hurt, it made me bitter. It deepened the divide. It stirred up hate inside of me. But I also imagine if in that moment I had received one gentle text or neighborly gesture, especially from someone who I know didn't share my politics, that would have stayed with me. That would have made a lasting impression. I think we as a nation are at a turning point. And we don't know if it's going to be a good one or a bad one. But we have the freedom to choose our reaction. And it's going to take something new. We need to ask ourselves, am I part of the problem or part of the solution? And if we're not willing to talk to the other side, if we're not willing to critique our own side's mistakes and cruelty, if we're not willing to critique what we've done, but only see our side as all good and their side as all evil, then I can tell you we are part of the problem, not the solution. I'm suggesting that we try to love our enemies, or at least our neighbors and coworkers. I'm not asking you to like them. Just offer some love. Now, I realize it's not easy, what I'm saying. And I understand that if you just can't do it right now in this situation, I get it. But for those of us who can, and those of us who want to try, this is a reminder and an invitation. We may not be able to change the whole nation, but we can change our neighborhoods and workplaces and communities. And if we each do that, then maybe our nation changes too. Other things we might do: surround yourself with positive people doing good things. Find people that are trying to rise above the status quo responses with a higher love. Make sure you're finding ways to be around people who are different from you, because you'll see that they're human too, even if they vote and think differently. And maybe even more important to the cause, they'll see that you're human with dignity and compassion and kindness and a higher love. Finally, be careful of social media algorithms. They are created to be addictive by tapping into our instincts for anger and rage. Spend less time online. Friends, our country and our city and our world is becoming more diverse. And we either need to learn to live together as friends or perish separately as fools. Indeed, it's not always easy or comfortable, but if we can continue to do it here, within this community of All Souls, then we may help create an example for others. And Lord knows we need models of coming together right now. I'm thankful for this congregation, for allowing us to maintain our unique individuality while also binding us together as one community. We have it, as long as we can keep it. As long as we can keep it, not in some heaven light years away, but here, in this place, that light is shining. May it help us to rise to a higher love. I love you. Amen.